Danielle, good to see you.
Nice to see you all.
Same here. Thanks for the poll. Chapter leaders from the Latinas in Tech Seattle chapter, and I also work as a communications manager for one of the localization teams at T-Mobile. And I'm super happy to introduce you to Melisa Socorro-Nunez. She has a ton of experience. She has more than 50 years of experience in operations management, strategic planning, program innovation, and business development. And one of her goals in life is to help women become more independent and successful. She's gonna give us great advice. And after that, we're gonna be reviewing your questions in the Q&A chat. Please ask your questions whenever you're ready. And after that, our chapter director, Nancy Cesena, will also introduce herself and share some good news about our chapter. So Melisa, the floor is all yours. Thank you, everyone, and welcome again.
Thank you so much. Let me know if everything is, can you see my screen fine?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you so very much for being here today. I know it's a Tuesday, end of day, and we all have busy lives. So I am very excited to have been invited by Latinas in Tech in Seattle chapter to share a little bit about my experience on how to create and deliver a powerful business pitch to secure approval and funding. A little agenda. Besides the great introduction that Erica just shared about me, I wanted to also share other information about myself. We will cover what the perfect pitch is, the structure and content, and the delivery. And as Erica said, go ahead and as I talk, you can ask all your questions. This is not going to be a super long talk. I want it to be more interactive. So we will cover all of those at the very end. So about me, I was born and raised in Caracas. I am very passionate about traveling. I've had the opportunity to live in different places around my life, and most recently in Seattle. In terms of my academic background, I did a master's in public administration at Columbia University, where I focus on social entrepreneurship and women's empowerment. Before that, I am actually a lawyer back in my country, Venezuela. I decided never to practice because I decided to go into the public policy world, and that has been a great opportunity, also because I did a BA in communications, and that kind of very creative side of communications with the very structured side from law school merge really, really well in public policy, and currently in management consulting, which is what I've been doing for the past 5 years. My greatest passion, as Erica said, has been being a consultant for many different businesses. And it's interesting enough, for the different projects, different companies, different enterprises that I've helped, I've had so many women mentors, women clients, women guides, and my life has been so colorful because of that. I had the opportunity to work in an angel investment network and fund supporting women-led enterprises in New York. They had a super interesting model where they created this expert sift where companies led by women would go and be interviewed. And then after that first interview or screening, they would go down the sift to the point that they would pitch in a room full of investors. And I helped them throughout that kind of sift process. With this experience, I learned firsthand what are first, entrepreneurs most scared about, and second, how those fears are most of the time very easy to face and overcome. And by the time that they were able to be in front of that room full of investors, their growth was so palpable that it was one of the most incredible experiences that I ever had. I then jumped to the other side, supporting women-led startups in everything related to business development and marketing. And finally, I've been working for Microsoft as a consultant in operations, strategy, and marketing for the past 5 years. And I have to say 95% of my clients have been women. And not because I picked them, just because, I don't know, life has its very interesting synergies. So with that, I want to pose this question briefly and make you think, what makes a pitch unforgettable? Is it the imagery and the powerful images that you see throughout the pitch? Or could it be the graphics and how those graphics portray a message or guide you through a complicated message? Is it the supporting data that you have and that you as a speaker share with the audience, and you as the audience kind of keep thinking about, is that data relevant enough? Or is it the speaker itself? Well, for me, the perfect pitch is actually a myth. As we say in Latin culture, perfection is the enemy of good. We are most women in this conference, although I saw a couple of men as well. Thank you so much for joining. Most women are obsessed with perfection. I think that especially Latin women, we were raised in a culture where we had to be the perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect everything. And in our jobs, we obsess with perfection. Even if it's a simple email, we read it 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 times before we send it. When we apply to a job, we have to make the perfect application. And sometimes that perfection is more of a headache than a real expectation. When we see ourselves in the mirror, most of the time we see errors, we see mistakes, we see, wow, I'm not this, I'm not that. And when people see us, they just see a wonderful woman or a wonderful man. So I would love to invite you to forget about perfection, not only in your daily lives, but most importantly in a pitch. A pitch, in my perspective, is going to have different iterations, and those iterations most of the time have to do with the audience. In this particular talk, we are talking about investors and key stakeholders, also called business decision makers. And as the name say, they are business oriented. They are interested in results, cost, timing, returns of the investment. And when we think about what are we going to put and what are we going to say in that pitch, we first and foremost need to think about the audience. What is their language? What are their questions? We need to be one step ahead and literally sit down, not as ourselves, but in the shoes of that audience that is going to listen to us and is going to digest our pitch. And in terms of the different iterations, that is just life. We continue to iterate as we go, and we reinvent ourselves. I'm pretty sure many of us have had to take a completely 180-degree change, and that's going to happen with our pitch. Sometimes a great pitch is not the great pitch for one particular investor, and it's actually great for 3 others. So do not feel that your pitch was not. Erica, do you have a question? Sorry.
Luis is raising his hand. I think he has a question, Luis. Let me.
Do we want to take questions in the middle, or do we want to keep the questions to the end?
Luis, let's keep going. And oh, I think it was a technical issue here. Please keep going, Melissa. And we'll
No
take
worries.
questions in the Q&A chat for those of you who have questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So in those iterations, as the pitch evolves, there is 2 of them that I would definitely ask you to take some time, work on it. And one of the most difficult ones is the elevator pitch, which is actually the definition of your business idea or your proposal or your project in 15 to 30 seconds. And it's an elevator pitch just because it should be given in an elevator ride, or that's how it was measured. And that one is even more difficult than the business or investor pitch. And I would say that if you're able to accomplish a short pitch that is just 15 seconds as you say it, without rushing or eating your words, as we say in Spanish, probably the investor pitch is gonna go way more smooth. And I just put this here because I think that we've all been there. With our resume, there will always be room for improvement, yet you need to get it done. And that's the pitch. You need to just sit down, put time in your agenda, set up a couple of hours, put everything down there and start the iteration. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, have it review it with other people, have financial people to check up the numbers, have someone from marketing to review all of your wording until you have a final product that is good and is never going to be perfect. And I promise you that. In terms of structure and content, you're going to find so many resources online. So I put here what I consider kind of the key pillars of a pitch, and the images that I have for each of them are just referenced from other decks that I've created from clients or other resources that I've used in the past. So in that sense, for me, it's key to talk about the problem and the solution. And in the case of the problem, it's very important that you support with data the problem that you're describing. Why is it relevant? Why is it important? Where is that data coming from? What is the supporting facts that says, yes, this is a problem that needs to be solved? And then as you support that data, you provide the solution. With my business idea, with my project, this is how I'm going to tackle this problem. The team, sometimes people leave this to the very end. I actually love introducing the team at the very beginning, just to give the audience a little bit of context of who is behind this business idea and what are their credentials in order to tackle that problem that you just mentioned. It's so important. And of course, you, why are you presenting this business pitch? What is your role within this bigger team? The uniqueness of your business model, well, we all know there are so many products and services already out there. So you need to make sure that you delineate each and every element of your business model that is very unique. That could be if you're in the healthcare system with whatever certifications that you need to get from the health department. If you're talking about data and science and any other hard data materials, you need to support it as well and describe how you're making it that different. And more important, how do you compare to whatever else is out there? Not necessarily by, in this particular part of the pitch, comparing yourself with other products, but making sure that the audience know. So if you're going to talk about travel, you cannot necessarily if you're going to talk about travel and hospitality, you're not necessarily talk because Airbnb does this, but you need to make sure that you are always a step ahead in describing your business model and how it competes with the biggest competitors. The impact and the proof of concept, as I said, and as you can see, this goes one by one with your problem and with the solution and the uniqueness of your business model. You need to make sure that you visually capture how is your product or service going to impact the market, and how is that if you already have a pilot program, show the numbers of your pilot program. How long did it take to achieve those numbers? If you haven't done the pilot program, you can maybe do some indicators and some forecasts in terms of those numbers. For the market opportunity and go-to-market strategy, I think that this is probably one of the sections that you might dive in the most because the market is oversaturated for most part, but you do need to show where is your niche, what's their number, where are they located, how are you going to reach out to them, what is your marketing strategy in order for that audience to come to you and you come to them as smoothly as possible. And if not, what are the channels that you're going to use or that you're going to create in order to tackle them? In terms of your competitors, as I said, with your business model and your proof of concept, this is the part where you're actually going to delineate who are they and why are you better. And you're going to convince your stakeholders that your proposal is 10, 100 times better, 100 times more efficient, 100 times more productive and more beneficial to the end user. And this is where you stand out. There are very different models for describing the competitive landscape. I'm pretty sure you all know them all. For me, the easiest one is who you are and who they are and how do you stand up. Sorry. Then the numbers and financials, for some people, this is the boring part, but actually for investors, this is one of the most important parts. I don't like putting Excel tables on a slide. Nobody can read those, not even the investors. They don't have the supervision to read the numbers and do the calculations in their mind unless they're genius. So I invite you to play with Excel, which is very easy to convert those numbers in graphs and present those visually, and instead of just the numbers that most people cannot digest in 30 seconds. And then finally, the ask. For some people, this is kind of a section that make the speaker uncomfortable, but this is actually one of the sections that the stakeholders are more interested in. What do you want from me is their question. What can I be of help could be also their question. And you need to ask that. And you need to be very clear on the amount of money that you're raising or the amount of money that you're expecting in your budget, or if this is going to be a seed raise or a Series A or a Series B if you're raising capital, or if you are asking for an increase of budget and how that budget was calculated, what are the assumptions and how is it going to be dispensed. So with that, in terms of structure and content, my tips and tricks is keep it simple, clean, and concise. Make the content as visual as possible. There is a rule of thumb of using 1 minute per slide in order to keep the audience in order to be dynamic and keep the audience entertained or engaged. And then moving all the then slides to the appendix or the Q&A. And all of this is because you need to always be looking after telling a captivating story. Before I jump into delivery, I need to take a sip of water. So in terms of delivery, which is the part of the speaker, my 4 principles, and this has been probably more than 15 years of pitching from the day that I run for student council in my high school up until today. This is how I define myself, not only as a speaker, but also as a woman and as a professional. So this is a little bit very personal for me, but I hope that they are useful for you. Number 1 is always be one step ahead. As you sit in the shoes, or as you put in the shoes of the investor, you need to anticipate what are they thinking. You need to read their faces and see, is this person following me, or do I need to change the pace of what I'm saying, or do I need to skip this slide and go to the one that he's expecting me to talk about? So you always need to be prepared. You always need to see your surroundings and be as much ahead as you can. And again, this is not only for pitching, this is just for doing business. As you anticipate the needs of your clients, as you anticipate the needs of your supervisors or your teams, and you are always a little bit more prepared than the standard, the chances of success are better, at least from my perspective. This is a very funny statement. I always talk about embracing your masculinity. And why do I talk about this? In that experience with the Angel Investment Network, it was super interesting how most of the investors that attended those pitch events were men. 90% of the room, if not 95% of the room, were men. And funny enough, although that Angel Investment Network supported women-led enterprises, high-growth women-led enterprises, sometimes the women founders would invite a men to pitch. And you would stand in the room and say, why? But she's so good, but she's the one that created that product or created that service, so she's behind all the research of this health solution. And the reality is that as women, we become most of the time or some of the time intimidated in a room full of men. And when I talk about embracing your masculinity, is I know that you're uncomfortable, because it could be uncomfortable, as probably is uncomfortable for a man to be in a room full of women. It's the same thing. But in your case, you're their equal, and you're coming today with a great opportunity in your hands, not only to pitch them, but for them also to have the opportunity to invest in your company, to invest in your business. So don't see yourself as less than them. Try to keep your cool, try to be concise, try to be clear, try to be loud, but not necessarily too loud. Try to just channel that inner you that is there and just bring it up in the volume that needs to be bring up, with your shoulders straight and with your chin up, as our grandmas would say. The third pillar for me is wear the skin of your worst adversary. And this one is part of that anticipation as well. It's kind of making sure that you have all the answers covered for the worst questions that you could be asked. for the worst reactions that you could be asked, because there is always someone in the room that is going to ask you the questions that you don't want to answer. And you have to be able to smile and say, great question. I have this and this and this and supporting data that allows me to say that my business, my product, my service is a very competitive product, and keep your cool. You're not there asking, as we say in Spanish, for limosna. You're asking because you have a proof of concept and you have a business and you have a project that has all the reasons to be funded. So don't be scared, embrace that as well, and remain as confident as you can and as cool as you can as well. And then fourth, channel your best advocate. And this is my very last principle. However, one of the most important of all. I don't know who your special person is. It could be your grandma, it could be your parent, it could be your partner, it could be you. But channel that person as you say each word, as you stand up, as you smile, as you move around the room, as you sit down at 3 a.m. to redo your pitch because you're nervous and you have your pitch event at 4. Just make sure that you're always, 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 always thinking of that inspiration that is the one that has pushed you to today. And with that, I say thank you so much. We're gonna open for Q&A in just a second. This is my website, Push and Love. I'm not gonna tell you all about it because it's a very personal story that I would love for you to read, but it's my life motto and how I have been embraced by so many women throughout my life, and how I want to pass this torch along one at a time with my life philosophy. This is my email, melisoco@gmail.com, and my LinkedIn that we will share on the chat. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Melisa. This has been great. I love all your advice, and especially the fourth principle, channel your best advocate. I think I'm gonna pay more close attention to that one. We have a few questions from the group, and I'd like to read you one of them.
Sure.
And the first question, is the participants want to know if you could share the presentation with the group.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
The only part that I might not be able to share is the structure and content, because some of that is material that I've worked with other clients, not final versions, but everything else I can share.
Sure, thanks so much. And for all the attendees, we're going to be sharing the recording of this event and also the modified presentation from Melisa by the end of this week. So thank you for that. The first question is, how can we handle challenges related to cross-collaboration within members of our own teams? What if team members are resistant to change? Great question.
That is a great question. So I'm going to talk from my very personal experience as well as I've done throughout this. I am a very transparent person, and I have found that transparency with empathy is probably one of the most important skills that I've been able to polish throughout the years. With that said, whenever I have issues with colleagues or with clients or with other co-founders, before having it explode, where you have a fight and you don't want to see that person ever again, I kind of like the very first time that a little word was said incorrectly, I will go like, okay, well, maybe she had a bad day, maybe he had a bad day. But then the second or third time, just go ask the question and say, hey, is there anything that I am doing right now that I could do differently? Or have I done anything that has bothered you or that you have felt that I have damaged you in any way? And by posing the question first to receive feedback, maybe opens the door for them to say, actually, yes, you did this and this and that. Oh, I am so sorry that it happened. You apologize, you listen. And then now that we're talking about it, I would love to say this as well. So I don't know if this is clear, but I always open the door for feedback first when a relationship is not going smoothly, rather than just going and blurping out like, hey, you're doing this and this and this and that, because you don't know if it's coming from you.
Great advice, open communication. We thank you. We have a couple of questions about your favorite pitch. Would you mind sharing some of your favorite pitches with us?
Oh my God. So one of the, it's actually about a moment more than a pitch. So in this angel investing firm, one of my key roles was screening the women when they applied to the network. And there was one woman that had an amazing, amazing business model and something that nobody had seen before. And my boss was also obsessed in the business model, but she was super, super shy, and she didn't felt capable of going into the pitch event with this 80 or 50 investors in Midtown New York City. A very frightening moment for sure for someone that is not comfortable to pitch. And it was very interesting how my work with her for the 3 weeks in advance, together then with my boss, Victoria, that we sat with her and we practiced, and again, and again, and again, and again. The pitch that she gave rocked the room. Like nobody thought that she was scared at all. She was just so confident. And that's why I kind of talk about channeling your best advocate, because when you do actually practice and practice and practice and bring out your best, you're gonna knock everybody's socks down.
Wonderful. And a follow-up question, how long could the pitch be?
So I said it during the presentation. There is 2 pitch that you should definitely practice, which is the elevator pitch, which is a 15 to 30 seconds. And then the investor pitch, it's usually between 5 and 10 minutes. And as I also said in the slides, I don't recommend spending more than 1 minute per slide. So literally, if you have 10 minutes, just work on 8 slide deck, 9 slide deck tops, because you're always going to extend a little bit more and everything else could go to the appendix.
Thank you. That's a good reminder. We have more questions. What has been the hardest project that you have pitched and why?
Well, the last one that I worked at Microsoft, Evelyn is here. So Evelyn, we did not work together on that one, but I think that she knows exactly the one that I'm talking about. I was recruited by a senior product manager from Azure. She was changing roles and she recruited me to execute on an idea that she had for a learning platform for developers worldwide. This was the very first time that Microsoft would do something of that of that reach, because it was worldwide and it was cross business units. So it was 4 business units, something that most of the time doesn't happen. It entailed 20 people, stakeholders, and more than 500 people, Microsoft worldwide, engaged in the development of that project and execution. And I would say that it was not only one of the most challenging projects that I've ever executed, but one of the most gratifying as well, because my client was incredible. The other client that recruited me was there throughout the process, not necessarily holding my hand, but having my back, even when my back didn't need it to be had. And the whole team's synergy was so positive. And by the time that we launched, we had already accomplished our indicators within a month, and we had 4 months ahead. So it was very, 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 very stressful, but it paid the price of the effort invested.
Wow, what an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that with us. There is a question about, very important question about money. How do you find investors that want to hear you pitch?
Actually, there are more angel investing networks than you think. So depending on who you are, for example, if you're a woman, or if you're a Latina, or if you're a person of color, or if your project is about healthcare or technology or education, there are so many angel investors in Seattle, well, not New York, of course, San Francisco, of course, but I would definitely invite you to not only Google it, also look for meetup groups. There's so many meetup groups about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs on particular niche. And the most important part of all, network as much as you can. It's part of the living. Just making your network as big as possible. As they say in Washington, D.C., the first thing they need to have, if it's your business card, that is not the case anymore, but it is. You do need to show up in the room, ready to pitch who you are. And who you are, if you're an entrepreneur is your business. So have that pitch very, very sharp, and start collecting and start networking and start emailing back and start asking, hey, do you know of an angel investing network? Hey, do you know about a pitch competition? Hey, do you know about any sort of fund that supports X or Y or Z? There are many, many, many different resources out there.
Great, thank you, Melisa. And talking about network, I added Melisa's LinkedIn page. If you'd like to connect with her, I'm sure she'll be happy. Please add your questions in the Q&A chat if you have any questions. We have a couple more, and the other one is, how much do you recommend talking about your competitors by name?
I think that, especially in this country, maybe in Latin America, that we kind of have those very, very hard competitors law. In the United States, you can put the logos of all your competitors in your SWOT analysis, in your map of where are you more or less plus, minus. And I think that it's important to talk about the big elephant in the room. Why would you not? If you are gonna create a solution that is better than a very, very well-known company and brand, you need to be clear about who you're talking about and be able to demystify them and say why your product or your business is better. And I would say, if you are bringing the elephant in the room, be ready to answer all the questions of whoever supporter of that brand in the room is, because there's always someone in the room that says, oh, but I am invested in that company. Oh, great, you are. So be ready to answer those questions, but focus your content on yourself.
Great, thank you. Always be prepared for unexpected questions. So we have an important question here. How have you been able to keep your cool when presenting to C-level executives?
So it's super funny, again, being personal, and maybe some people might laugh. I keep my cool most of the time, but my face betrays me and I become very, very red. So it's super funny because while I'm talking and I'm being all calm and suddenly if I get a question that I'm like super annoyed at, poof, all my red comes up and there is nothing to do about it. I become flushed and I just have to keep smiling and just go ahead and answer. I have to say that I've had many, not many, but I've had a number of opportunities of men belittling me in this country in particular, more than in Venezuela, interesting enough. But I feel that by not playing their game and just keep smiling and just making sure that you listen to them, you continue smiling, you continue saying, yes, wow, yeah, sure, why not? And then boom, you do and you answer the right question. So don't let them get to you because you're gonna keep finding them wherever you go. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, and by the answers in the chat, you're not the only one that suffers from the redness in your face, so you're not alone.
Yeah.
The other question is, in your experience, when is a good moment to offer a startup to the sharks? My question is more about how mature the project or company should be to start pitching the business.
It all depends because, for example, if you are not necessarily developing a new technology, and if you are not necessarily developing a new cure for anything health-wise that doesn't need any sort of FDA clearance of anything of the likes, and you just have a very, very, very brilliant idea that could be executed with the right amount of money, I think that right from the moment that you have the idea, you can start pitching it at least to key advisors. And that's what I've been doing throughout my whole life. Every time that I've had a tiny idea, I go to my potential advisors and I say, hey, you're in this business. What if, and then you propose or you pitch the idea. And depending on the questions that they ask and depending on the interest, you continue building. So I don't think that you necessarily need to have a proof of concept all of the time, but at least a forecast before you actually go and talk to investors, because you don't want them, you don't want to, they're gonna have hard questions for you and you need to be prepared to answer those. Otherwise, they're losing their time, and you don't ever want to make an investor lose their time because they're not going to open the door again.
Great advice. The other question is, what is the best way to handle objections?
Well, that has to do with what I talked about before and about flushing and all the things, and also about the principle of wearing the skin of your worst adversary. When you're pitching, you need to be prepared for the hard questions, and you need to have those questions practiced, and not practiced in your brain and not practiced in your computer. Practice literally with your partner, with a best friend, with your boss, with a teammate, that you can literally say, let's go sit down and shoot these questions, please, because I need to know if I am ready to answer. And you need to go and follow up questions and be harder. And you need to, as Noemi said, that it takes a lot of practice. Yes, it does take a lot of practice, as it takes a lot of practice to be an entrepreneur. It's very hard to hit it on the first round. You need to just continue hitting it, and then boom, you get the super score. So yeah, I think that practice and anticipating and thinking how your worst adversary thinks.
Great. Do you have any tips on how to calm your nerves before presentations, like quick tips?
Well, quick tips, and this is something that I learned by myself in college. I don't read anything for the exam 1 hour before. So I don't touch anything before I pitch an hour before. Maybe on this particular type of events that are virtual, you're always nervous and you're like, oh, let me double check. It doesn't, if there is no typo. Okay, that's okay. But do disconnect yourself at least for an hour. Do something else. Go for a walk. Have a glass of water. Drink some tea. I do not recommend drinking coffee or Coke or any caffeine type of drink, because when you're pitching, you need to be clear and you need to be able to say the words at the same speed as they're going to be listened and understood. So if you rush into your pitch, it doesn't matter if the content is awesome, people didn't understand you and they're not going to remember what you said. So I feel that just taking 1 hour off, trying to prepare things as in advance as you can. I sometimes can't sleep before an important event. That happens. But the next morning, I drink my coffee very, very early. And then I try to eat super healthy so I don't get very, very tired before the pitch.
Great tips. We'll try to follow some of that. Talking about virtual events, how has this new environment that we're living in now has changed? It's very difficult to pitch in person, but now I think we have another layer when we add all these virtual adjustments that we have to make. Any advice for all of us who are working virtually and have to do presentations and pitches?
Yes. So I actually had a talk with my client team before the close of the project that I was talking about. First of all, turn your cameras on. Turn your cameras on for every meeting. It doesn't matter if your hair is pretty, if you did your makeup, if you didn't drink your coffee, if there is mess in the background. Just turn your camera on. As you turn your camera on, other people are going to turn it too, and it's going to become human again. You're not going to be talking to a dark void that you don't know what's happening. And human interaction and being able to read people's faces and to read people's grievances and people's reactions, like, oh, is she paying attention? Is she not paying attention? Is he understanding? Is he doing something else, et cetera, and lead by example. And if you have your camera on, don't have your phone on, don't look at another computer and have another thing on the other computer. No, just be there. And you're going to see as you do it, more people are going to venture and are going to start loosening that camera fright. And at least in my case, it worked. For all these pitch events that I had to do with 30 Days to Learn It, that was the name of the platform that we created. I had to pitch for 80 people at 6 a.m. in the morning and 120 people at 9 p.m. in the night, and then meetings and this and that. And every single one of them, I was on, and I was sometimes the only one. And then some people actually liked it. And what you say with your smile, with your eyes, is so much more than what you say just with your voice, that I invite you to turn your camera on. That's my one and foremost important advice.
I'm following your advice right now. I turn the camera on.
Yeah.
I love what you said of becoming human again. I think that's a very important reminder. We have one more question before we turn we give the platform to our Seattle chapter director, Nancy Cesena. And the last question is, what are you looking for when screening applicants for a pitch? What made them amazing?
So from one part, when you're doing an enterprise, so for example, it would make no sense for me to develop a healthcare device because I'm not in the healthcare system. I've never worked in the healthcare system. I am not a doctor or anything of the like. So the background of the entrepreneur and what does that makes them the right person to be leading this company for me is key. Not only their professional background, their personal background, if they're invested in their own company. Because, for example, you can start a business with your own time, that is a ton of money, and you should include that in your financials every hour that you have invested, because time is money. And if you have invested time, I'm gonna at least listen to you. And that's for me, one of the most important things. And the second is their capacity to answer their hard questions. I have to say, I am a hard screener, but I am super nice. So I'm not gonna say like, no, I'm gonna be super nice, but I'm gonna ask that question that you are not necessarily prepared to answer, and I'm gonna read. If you're not prepared to answer, at least say, that's an amazing question. We've been working on that. My team is going to be the one that is going to give you the answer that you're expecting. So let me get back to you. So that for me is enough. So your capacity to deal with a hard audience as an entrepreneur for me is key.
If your project doesn't get approved, is it okay to ask for feedback?
Always ask for feedback. Always. I ask for feedback for everything because sometimes we overthink and we start, oh no, it was me, it was the color that I'm wearing, or it was a bad day, or it was the weather, etc. And sometimes it was something completely nothing related to you. So it's better to just bring it up and say, oh no, we loved your project. It was not the right timing. We're now investing in education and technology. You are something else. So just ask. And most importantly, whatever feedback they're gonna give you, it's gonna make you stronger, and it's gonna make your business idea stronger. So always welcome.
Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Thank you so much, Melisa. This has been amazing. We all learned so much from you, and we're gonna be sharing your LinkedIn profile for all the attendees who would like to connect with you. It was great, and we can't wait to have you back for another webinar.
Yes, whenever you want to focus on all the tips and tricks of being a woman in corporate America with an accent. Although you look very white, you're not white enough. I am more than happy to talk about that. Talk about career change, talk about all the things. Super excited to be here. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. And now we have our director, our Seattle chapter director, Nancy Cesena, who will share some news with all of you. Thank you all very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nancy Cesena, and like Erica mentioned, I'm the Latinas in Tech Seattle chapter director. Before I share any updates, again, I'd first like to thank all of you so much for joining us today, and Melisa for sharing all of these valuable tips and tricks. Thank you so much. Don't forget to connect with Melisa. And with that said, and with Washington State opening up very, very soon, we at the Seattle chapter are exploring having an outdoor networking event later on in the year. And this event would have limited capacity, and we'd be following some protocols to keep us all safe. We would like to collect some feedback to help us in our planning process. So we would like to ask you to please take a minute and at most 2 minutes to fill out a survey that you'll find in the chat, so you can share your thoughts and help us in this initial planning process. Also, please make sure to follow our social media accounts. They will also be listed in the chat. and also register as a member on the latinasintech.org website so we can keep you informed about this possible event and about any future events and updates. Thank you all so much, and we hope to see you at all of our future events.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.